All right, welcome everybody to Dave Cooper Live Wednesday Product Spotlight. And today we're going to have another great show for you. We have Jupe in the house. Wait until you see this stuff. This is the coolest flat packable, shippable housing I think that we've had on the show yet. I mean, wait until you see this. This is really cool. There's big ideas here. There's big technology involved. And there's a big personality involved. So that's going to be part of today's show. But first, we need to thank our sponsors for joining us today and allowing all of this to happen. So at Dave Cooper Live, we are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests include experts in building systems, building science, building codes, and the tech used to build it better. And today's show is sponsored by Forward Solutions Group. Ben Hershey, Joe Butler, they are a team with more than 175 years of experience developing and specifying manufacturing for panelized, volumetric, modular industries with best practices in development and implementation. They offer consulting to investors, developers, manufacturers, builders, and offsite manufacturing methods. Forward Solutions is driving companies to succeed where others have failed. Please reach out to Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com for more information. They truly are two of the best in the industry, and they really do work hard for you. So thank you very much to our sponsors. All right, enough of that. With that said, I know everybody's really busy, so why don't we bring in our guest, Jeff Wilson, CEO of Jupe. He's an expert dumpster diver as well, and we're going to talk all about it. What's happening, Jeff?
Good morning, Dave, or good afternoon on the East Coast.
It is the East Coast. Jeff, I already know from our pre-conversation before the show that, one, you have a lot of energy. Two, you're doing amazing things in the space. I know Julietta Moretti introduced us, which was awesome. And I think, three, I can't wait to hear this story and share it with everybody, because you literally went from being Dr. Dumpster Diver to a really cool startup, and the story is going to be amazing to share.
Yeah, as I think Drake said, started at the bottom, now we're here. I don't know where here is exactly, but that's where we are.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, we ask everybody joining the show, Jeff, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. We don't want to leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call your mother. It's been known to happen, believe it or not. Anyhow, but you only have about 2 to 3 minutes to do it, because we got a lot to get through. So the floor is yours, my friend. Tell everybody who you are and what you're about.
So do it like Dr. Evil. My father was the boulangerie owner. Well, we won't start back that far, but sixth generation Texan, got into tech immediately after school out there in Silicon Valley, and kind of the first boom. And at one point got burnt out on that, went and buried my Rolex and my ring out in the desert and said, I'm never going back to this sort of business capitalism thing again. Ended up as a professor, an environmental science professor. And towards the end of that, I said, hey, I want to do something sort of experimental, a little different, educational. I got a 33 square foot, 8 cubic yard dumpster that was used, cleaned it out, and moved into it. And, when you're in the belly of the beast, so to speak, you begin to think about a lot of crazy things. And I thought, hey, why don't we get out there and try to do something about housing and the housing crisis. Left my job at the university, started a prefab modular volumetric housing company. And then that sold off into 2018. And here we are now, trying to solve housing for a very large chunk of humanity. There's 1.6 billion people out there without adequate housing.
Yeah. Big chunk is small words, right? I mean, it's a big chunk. I mean, what you're looking at market share wise is absolutely huge, in the way you're looking at shipping these and flat packing them across the world. So let's kind of jump into it here. From dumpster, like laying in a dumpster, did you just say, hey, I'm going to solve the world's housing crisis on my own? Or like, how did the idea for Jupe come about and the idea for the designs come about?
Yeah, that dumpster eventually was a drop top. So you can imagine when you're laying on your back looking up at the stars in Austin, Texas, you start to see all kinds of things. And, my original sort of idea, which I found out was not all that original, was like, let's make the iPhone of housing, right? Let's make something that's mass manufacturable, branded, integrated piece of hardware and software. And that's what we set out to do. And I think one of the things that was different there was I didn't hire any architects or any construction folks. I started with an industrial designer, actually the guy that had patented the solar roof tiles for Tesla, and said, hey, don't use any of the traditional architectural software. Let's use product design software so that we can design something truly scalable. That product ended up being about 40,000 pounds, required cranes on both ends, and about $15,000 to ship around town and set. And so after that, I said, let's try to solve for the entire system, not just for the living space and production, but how we ship and move these things and set them up as well. So we've ended up at Jupe, which we think is a solution to solve a lot of problems, and initially going into sort of the hospitality market.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, right. I mean, it's like glamping to me when I see these things. Some of it's really, really, really nice. So why don't we do this, everybody? We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch right now. Please hit that like and share button. If you're not following Jeff Wilson, you should be. You should start following him right now. And if you're not following us, follow us right now. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because guess what? If you can't stay for this entire show, you can go to our YouTube channel later and catch up on it, watch everything Jeff has to share with us. So, all right, with that said, Jeff is not only going to talk about his product today, he's going to show some product slides and some photos, but he's also going to give us a little bit of a live walkthrough. We have a Jeff on the go phone sitting by waiting for us to take a walk to the factory. So, Jeff, the floor is yours. Let's start wherever you think it is best to start telling the Jupe story.
Yeah, so, when I started looking at the landscape of how modular works and how we think about modular, I had seen a company called Rivian. It's an electric car company, actually an electric truck company. And what was interesting about Rivian, and I'll share screen here as well, is that most folks think that Rivian is and here's Jupiter. I'll get back to why we're called Jupe and Jupiter. But on the left here, you'll see this, what they call their skateboard chassis. Chassis are no new thing in the auto industry, right? As far back as I think the late 19th century, we've been building these chassis products and then throwing things on top of it. And I said, hey, this company I thought was an electric truck maker, but their real business is building these chassis, and nobody else wants to mess around with batteries and motors and these things. So sold 100,000 of these chassis to Amazon. All of their electric delivery vehicles will eventually sit on a Rivian chassis. And I said, well, why haven't we thought about housing this way? A way to integrate the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and the foundation all into one modular prefab product. And so what we've designed now with Jupe is the foundation is actually the product, a skateboard type chassis, and it's modular. Right now we have this high design sort of living unit, but we can slap anything on top of this, right? Once we start embedding things in it, we can 3D print on it. We can drop, as we have our soft top structures, hard top structures, put them together. And so that's the core technology we're developing out, because to make that off grid and within an 18-inch chassis is, as you know, a significant challenge.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, I'm interested once we hop into this to learn more about how are you doing the plumbing on a structure such as this? Where is all the waste, gray water, black water, fresh water? How does that all work? Because it does sound very challenging, especially on something that is as transportable as what you're talking about.
Right, right. And, you know, it's a step-by-step process. Right now, we've made it such that we can take one of those tiles out, as we call them, one of those boxes, and we can drop directly in our 200 amp hour off-grid battery and Alexa. I'm going to have to turn Alexa off here. You know, the plugins for a solar for the solar tile and all of the controllers. We're developing out the technology, which I won't be able to show today, to begin to drop in other systems, a refrigerator in the floor, a black water system, gray water system, all those sort of things, so that ultimately we can flat pack this thing down. So, you know, this is what we're really trying to get to, is the ability on a flatbed trailer to move 18 full living units.
Wow, at one time. I mean, that's a lot of units. What's the weight? I mean, we were talking before, you were at, you know, 40,000 pounds needed crane on one end or the other. Clearly, these are not 40,000 pounds anymore, or that truck would be doing a wheelie.
Yeah, so my last, you know, prefab modular company, Kasita, had a was 40,000 pounds, and as I said, it was about $150,000 to buy and about $15,000 even to move across Austin. So what we're trying to solve for here is that entire system, and I call it, you know, orders of magnitude quantum leaps. So in the case of the cost of the unit, right, we can sell these for around 10x cheaper than a Kasita. We can move them for 100x cheaper. So it's about $150 rather than $15,000 to move them around town. Rather than taking 90 days to make, we can assemble one of these in 5 hours. And just all of the sort of metrics that make housing expensive and complicated, we say, how can we design the best experience in the world? And how can we move the bar by a quantum leap by at least one order of magnitude?
Right, right. Interesting. Okay, so walk me through the process of all of this, if you wouldn't mind, Jeff. I'd like to understand, you know, can you talk to us a little bit about the structure? We have the concept behind us. Can you walk us through how this thing is put together, how it's built, and then where the vision on where this is going to start shipping out to?
Yeah, so I won't go into too much detail about how they're assembled, but I can say that, you know, we've essentially learned how to take a sheet product, right, essentially something similar to a 4x8 piece of plywood, and CNC. We've done a engineering such that we can, with a CNC machine in a couple of hours, cut out the entire base and then assemble it. So in terms of supply chain, which has been, you know, even more complicated by the pandemic, we've got a base set of just a few materials, right, that we can fit together. We could ship this stuff out on a container and essentially set up a factory anywhere in the world. So these things are assembled. We've also got some engineered, a few pieces of steel within them. And then we have what we call this mast structure that also takes down and fits within the unit. We can fit our entire canvas top into one of those squares such that everything arrives in that 18-inch sort of slab. In terms of where these things are going right now, because we've designed a system that's not connected into the grid, that's less than 200 square feet. So a lot of times you pass through code on a shed, has no foundation, and can be set up in an hour. We're able to deploy these literally like most places on the face of the earth. So our initial customers are folks that want to just either add Airbnb rooms to their existing property, or if they're operators of larger hotels or glamping outfits, they can add 20 keys within a day.
Wow. So it takes about 5 hours to put together. How many people in that 5 hours does it take to assemble?
Two people. In this very small facility, which you'll see a little bit here in Los Angeles, which is half the size of my facility at my last startup, you know, it would take me about 90 days to fully assemble one. We probably would have had it down to 30. We can push out the door here about 500 units a year, even in this very small kind of prototyping facility. So our longer goals of, solving, housing for a very large number of people, those numbers of, cranking out hundreds of thousands of these things are entirely possible. It's much easier than building a car. And, there are factories in the world that build 500,000 cars a year, single factories.
Right. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Assembly time in a manufacturing. So it sounds like there's a lot of the prefabrications offsite. And is your factory more of an assembly plant than it is a manufacturing plant?
Yeah, I would say that. The stuff that we need to do, just from moving from raw materials, if you will, into a fully baked jupe, there's very little of that we need to outsource right now, mainly just the soft goods. The rest of it we pulled in-house, and with things like CNC machines and some cutting tools, we can essentially do most of the work here. And it's why we're able to get the cost so low on these. I mean, you can't have a foundation built in, fully off-grid, right, flat packable, high design living experience. These things feel huge. They have 11-foot ceilings. You just can't do that and sell it for, under $20,000 like we're doing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So, all right, listen, everybody, if you're just joining us, and there's some comments and questions, we'll get to those in just a second. Jeff, I think, your vision on this is quite amazing. And I think the way that you say that you can take this and assemble them anywhere in the world and build production anywhere in the world, I mean, that's a huge comment, right? So when we think about having to manufacture housing anywhere, it's never that simple. How many people in a manufacturing plant does it take to assemble these? And how many of these can they actually produce, per plant per year?
Yeah, so in about 10,000 square feet with 5 people, we can make 500 a year.
5 people, 500.
5 people
per person.
100 per person per year. Yeah, wow. Because we have some really small manufacturing engineers. Some of them have come from the prefab modular ADU space. Some of them have come from Tesla. Some of them have come from SpaceX. And so we're trying to really pull in a cross-section of different industries into designing something. I don't really even call it a tent or a house or a structure. It really is just a jupe. In my opinion, it's a new category because nothing's really been designed with those. There's not a chess piece that exists like this, that once we get our satellite internet up and running, you'll be able to drop these anywhere in the world and essentially have a pretty comfortable living situation on the face of the earth, right? Particularly when we move into our hard tops that begin to have some insulation, and the off-grid water systems. It really is a new paradigm for humanity in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I would say so, 100%. All right, why don't we hop into a couple questions here? What do you think, Jeff? And then for all you out there, we are going to go walk through one of these live on this show, so don't go anywhere. That is coming up. So looking forward to actually seeing one of these built. And Jeff, I hope you made your bed before we go in there.
Yeah, I haven't slept in a few nights. I can't say that the dorm room, like, sheets have been changed in the last 2 nights, but I think I did make my bed.
Yeah, well, it's a heck of a step up from a dumpster. I can guarantee you that. Right. Oh, look who's in the house. Henry Mickelberg. Hi, Jeff. This is quite the step change from Kasita. Made a nice comment there. Do you know Henry Mickelberg?
Yeah, Henry. Yeah, I mean, Casitas were beautiful, right? Like, the founder of Gensler Architecture, Art Gensler, was on our advisory board. Made a comment at one point that it was the, highest design, nicest small space he had ever been in. Admittedly, he had never been in my dumpster. It was also quite expensive, and getting things permitted at the state level in an urban space is just very expensive and cumbersome. We went through the state level process here in California that took us maybe 12, 14 months to even be able to drop one of these in a backyard. With what we have now, right, we've solved for the permitting and code issues. We've solved for the cost, for the transport, for the sort of livability of these things and the manufacturability. And so really, I hate to say, but I almost learned as much from my experience in the dumpster as I did from building Kasita. The dumpster was a very interesting process because, like, when you think about it, yeah, it's a structure that isn't really comfortable. It got up to 138 degrees one August before I got air conditioning in the dumpster, but it does what it's supposed to do very efficiently, right? It can be onloaded and offloaded with easy equipment. It's a solid structure. It can go anywhere, and it's cost effective. And it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to have some professor guy living in it, but it sort of receives and moves and dumps trash. And what we wanted to design is something that, you know, allows someone to live in for a few nights in a very high design thing that also is low cost to manufacture, move around, and just does exactly what it's supposed to do very well in a cost effective way.
Well, that was a heck of an answer. That's the end of the show, folks. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. I love it. Henry, thanks so much for the comment there. Who else do we have? We got Tim Sims. Haika Ria Tuha. Yeah, that's on you, Jeff. You probably got that one. Hey, Tim, what's happening, buddy? Glad you could join us today. Tim Sims, John Burns Real Estate Consulting. Love it. Love it. So do you know Tim?
Hey, Tim, how's it going? I speak Texan and I speak a little bit of Portuguese, and I'm learning how to speak California, but maybe you can give us a translation on that, and I can try to extrapolate it into something Jupe related.
I love it. I love it. All right, Tim, always giving us surprises. Here is a question from Va Marcosian. Have you thought about opening up your chassis specs in the future so your product becomes the infrastructure for other companies to design product on?
Of course. I mean, one of our core values at Jupe is open everything, right? Open the conversations. And one of those is opening up the platform. So at some point, once we get this really dialed in, you know, we'll begin to develop what I would call kind of dongle plugins to various types of systems, right? So we don't want to reinvent the wheel or the HVAC system or the refrigerator, but, you know, much like these ports that everybody loves, some people hate, where you got the ability to actually plug in the technology. You may have a dongle that fits in, you know, from our plumbing system in the Jupe into a standard like 2.5 inch tube that you might have on a toilet. We also will eventually, allow people to kind of hack that open system and begin to add things into that modular structure. The other thing is that I've been in some conversations with some ADU makers out here in California, and I'll give a shout out to one of them that I think's one of the, I'd say the leader out here right now in ADUs. It's called Abodu. We've talked to Abodu about even putting 4 of our chassis together, right, which would add up to about 440 square feet, much like the Rivian chassis that we were just talking about, and allowing a Abodu home to fit on top. So now you've got the foundation, you've got all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing embedded in that infrastructure on the bottom. You can drop anything on top, much like Rivian is working with Amazon to put their delivery vehicles on top. You could also 3D print on a Jupe chassis. You know, all you really need are the SIP panels, the stick build, the 3D printing, the masonry, right? If we can eventually take care of all the expensive and tedious things that nobody really wants to mess with, the guts of the building, that would be a very interesting sort of prospect. Of course, we're an early stage startup, and Dave, we started to get on our soapbox earlier, bringing innovation into this industry, you need to have a very rich, quick go-to-market strategy, which is why we've been selling a lot of these into hospitality, because you can see immediately we dropped one of these on a Friday night in Joshua Tree. On Saturday, it rented for $350, right? And it's been renting consistently for you just can't do that, right, in the sort of traditional industry. So we'll get there eventually. To opening up that platform.
Yeah, you know what? So you're right. Hospitality-wise, when you think about the cost of these and you think about what they can get per night, I mean, it just makes sense. And when you think about what it costs to provide housing, like you said, less than 20,000, right? 17,000, whatever these are. I mean, that's next to nothing when it comes to the municipalities, the towns, the government. When it comes to helping provide shelter and in a homeless crisis right now, affordable housing crisis, a disaster crisis, all of those things. You made a comment about, well, you could 3D print on your chassis, so to speak. So I mean, it can carry a lot of weight. Then these are really built pretty strong. I would have to imagine if you're going to 3D print concrete or Corian or any of that on it.
Yeah, so this particular chassis that we have isn't meant to 3D print on yet. That's something that we'll get into in the later sort of product roadmap. But like the corners that we have on this thing have been engineered to take very high wind loads, lots of stress, stacking, the ability to put wheels under them and move them around. With these little towing robots, those sort of things. So, just to sort of prove that, one of them we've got out in Joshua Tree. There were 65-mile-an-hour winds out there the other day that blew over a lot of the sort of all the temporary structures, and even blew over some Joshua trees. The Jupe stood and moved about maybe an inch. So when you think about this, we're actually going to test some of them in hurricane weather down in Puerto Rico this hurricane season to see really if these things are as robust as we think they are. I mean, we're not wishing for a hurricane to hit down there, but in a disaster relief scenario, we want to make sure that they're just much more durable, give people a, place to stay with some dignity, but also a next level of safety.
No, absolutely. Well, hey, anybody out there that's listening that has a wind manufacturer, right, or a wind testing facility, I mean, maybe that would work just as well. Hey, maybe NREL or somebody's out there listening from the government wants to test these things out just to see what they can do. I think would be great. All right, thanks for that comment. Let's go to the next comment here. We have John Allen Garangalo. I think if I got it wrong, please don't beat me up. Awesome stuff. My only comment is that these would require vast tracts of land if deployed in mass. And in most major cities where homelessness is prevalent, land cost is generally a premium.
So, yeah, that's a great question, John. The way we're thinking about this is trying to think about land use in a different way. So what I always look for in these systems in terms of innovation is, what I call the cracks in the system. And the cracks in the urban space, as they did exist, you may know of all of these. If you look at a map of a even dense urban area, there are all these small little triangles of land, odd-shaped little spaces. Well, a Jupe is only 111 square feet. They can be deployed almost right next to each other. Eventually, we'll be able to stack them. So using a kind of distributed system on these small pieces of land is one way to do it. Number two, it's not just cracks in space, but it's cracks in time. So we've all moved through, dense downtown spaces when there may be a raw piece of dirt there that somebody's not planning to build on for 18, 24 months. Maybe they're pulling permits or entitlements, or maybe they're just sitting on the land. Jupe could also be used in those spaces as a temporary structure. It only takes us an hour to set one up, an hour to take one down for housing folks that are experiencing homelessness in deep, in this sort of space. So of note, particularly with the pandemic that we've just experienced, there were already a lot of kind of parking lots, parking garages in the areas where people used to go to office buildings. So we've just started conversations with a company called Reef. And what Reef does is they take parking lots, parking garages, and they sort of, you might say, upcycle or upuse those spaces for different types of techniques. So we could fill a parking garage with Jupes. We could also fill a parking lot with them on a temporary basis. So when you're small and agile and not plugged into the grid, as the Jupe chess piece has been designed to do, there are all kinds of places that you can look that you wouldn't traditionally look for real estate.
You know, you're right, too, because even with the tiny home movement, you know, the parking lots of these big malls that are no longer operational and what have you, they're already set up for water and sewer and all the wiring that's out there in those lots for the lighting that used to be there and the power coming into these units. So I know a lot of the old parking lots and parking garages are being converted for just that reason alone. It makes for good space to be utilized, and you can have they're not zoned residential or multifamily. They're zoned for, you know, temporary shelter coming in and out. So there was a loophole that a lot of people were tapping into for that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. If you start just looking around in new places, right, or even look at a satellite of downtown, you know, a lot of these folks that own parking lots, they've got that piece of dirt and they, you know, call it a covered land play. They're just sitting on that parking lot and generating some revenue until they eventually want to build something larger. And, you know, I can't think of anything better than providing housing to folks that didn't have it. Before you go on to the next question, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Like right now, you know, we're deploying, I'll get my glow in the dark Jupe here. We're deploying a module like this, right, that starts on a foundational layer and pops up. And, you know, if this were the chassis that has, you know, in this configuration, I don't know if we can see this, it just has a bed and a couple of benches. The idea is that we can produce these at very high scale, very low cost. You could just reconfigure some of these bed units in here into either bunks or even a couple of different units, and we can put a whole new structure on top here. So that structure could be for a homeless, refugee, disaster relief type of module, to where somebody's staying in this thing when it was all tricked out with a Casper mattress and high-end FF&E for an Airbnb. That could instantly be reshifted and configured with our modular system into something that could be used for disaster relief or for displaced persons. And in fact, in Puerto Rico right now, we're talking to a group that wants to do about 2,000 Jupes, use them for hospitality 9 months out of the year. But then during hurricane season, rotate those units into a new configuration for folks that may lose their home in a disaster scenario.
Yeah, no, for sure. Listen, there's so many uses for this, and there's so many people who've been trying to figure it out. Coming up with something that's all compact, all inclusive when it comes to power, electricity, plumbing, and 1,000 pounds or whatever the case is to move them around. That's nothing. Couple people can do that, you know, with their hands wherever they are. And I think there's a ton of value behind it. And you're right. The disaster relief or, you know, quick response housing on these. One of the biggest problems FEMA has is having enough space for all these big trailers that they use, and then they end up in a dumpster. Well, maybe FEMA can be in the hospitality business when they're not using it. Maybe they can make a little bit of extra money instead of spending taxpayer dollars renting these things out. You know, so who knows?
I think that, FEMA trailers, as you alluded to, I think they're $170,000, $180,000. They usually don't stockpile a lot of them, and they use them once, right? So when there is a disaster, if we had a fleet of, say, 10,000 units around the U.S. that we could immediately pull out of a hospitality space and move into a scenario where someone lost their home in Northern California and didn't have to camp with their family in a Walmart parking lot, if we could deliver order a set of Jupes, they can live in their backyard and watch their house be rebuilt, all the while going to their community center, church, their bridge clubs, whatever they might have, and not truly be displaced from the community they live in.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, let's go back to some comments. And then after these next couple comments, Jeff, you think maybe we can go for a walk and check one of these things out live?
Sure, yeah. We'll give you a little tour of the factory. As we refer to the Jupe Gigafactory, which Giga is definitely an aspirational goal that's a few orders of magnitude beyond where we are. A lot. 5 orders of magnitude.
5 orders? I love it. All right, we got Joel Hutchins in the house. Joel wrote, maybe RJ Scaringe will lend you the Rivian testing facility. Well, there you
go. Joel, if you could help me slide into RJ's DMs on Instagram and make that happen, I would definitely be down with it. I mean, they are an inspiration. And of course, when I talk about the Rivian skateboard chassis, folks say, oh, this isn't a new concept. Well, it's not, right? But what RJ's doing and what he's built in the background before he's even released a product is something that's scalable and able to affect the whole electric car industry. And I hate to say, it may even be a more scalable product than what Tesla has out there, right? So maybe we should all see if RJ will sell us off market a bit of his company as well.
All right. Hey, well, listen, anything's possible. You never know. On this show, I've seen it all happen. So, all right. All we ask is that we get 10% of anything that you do. Don't worry about it. Just send the check. I'll give you my address. All right. Here we go. Alfin Ate, sorry I missed the presentation. Are those units insulated? Exterior shell seems too thin. How about this? Maybe we save that one for when we're out in the factory.
Yeah, well, and I can also just say briefly, we have a product roadmap. This particular product is meant for hospitality in high season, or even right now out in Joshua Tree, it's getting down to the 40s. And in even 30s, they just put a small little heater in the space. Folks are out glamping, so they sort of expect that. For a long-term living solution in a climate that varies a lot, this is probably not the solution right now. We are building a flat packable hard top, which you really need a sealed envelope before you start doing things with off-grid HVAC as you would expect. It needs to be really efficient.
Perfect. Listen, appreciate the question. It's a great question. All right, here we go. Adrian Mitchell. What is up, Adrian? This is brilliant, Jeff Wilson. Previously, when I was at Horizon North in Vancouver, we developed various projects on temporary lots and worked quite well. It opens up much needed, affordable, and unutilized land in urban centers. So, I mean, you got some people on board with this thought process, huh?
Yeah, Adrian, I mean, this is the thing. What we are trying to design, again, is a chess piece that can fit in and out of those small cracks in the sort of space-time urban topography. And there's folks that have none of these things are really new ideas. It's kind of how you put them together. And so we're really excited. Would love if you would reach out at some point to connect up with some of the folks in Vancouver. I think another thing I'll say is that we really want to give folks that are already experiencing a pretty hard time, right? They've been pushed into homelessness. They've lost their home through a disaster relief scenario, refugees that have been pushed out of their homeland. A place with dignity, a place to be proud, a place that, they can wake up and say, wow, I want to go back to my home, but this is the nicest, best temporary structure in the world. And my experience within this structure makes it such that it's not something that I'm looking at my watch on, when I'm going to be able to get out of here, that I can actually have a comfortable experience. And that's part of our larger mission, is to, build the best temporary structure in the world that also gives folks not only a new level of safety, but an experience with not only dignity, but high design. And we can do that through mass manufacturing and through the sort of processes we put together.
Jeff, I think it's kind of proven, if people can be comfortable and feel safe in their environment, it allows them to focus on getting out of that environment to something that they want to get into, right? But if people are out there and their only goal is shelter every day, there's no time to be creative and go look for jobs and clean yourself up. All the things that can come out of these shelters, right? Like you said, you put somebody in a place to where they're comfortable and they're relaxed. Now, it's kind of like having in-laws over. Maybe you don't want them too comfortable all the time.
Your own too. Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that, providing a level of dignity is a big deal. IKEA went at this problem, and they've got 10,000 shelters in a warehouse somewhere, in Scandinavia, because they had safety issues with it. There's been a host of startups that have gone after this problem directly by trying to build refugee or homeless housing. It just hasn't worked, which is why I've said, we're going to take the Uber Black, or more appropriately, we're going to take the Tesla Roadster model here. We're going to build the coolest freaking thing that anyone's ever seen, get it out into a high octane hospitality market, right? Where somebody can pay one of these off in 60 or 90 days. And with financing that we've got now through that we've got, you can actually pay them off by just, a few $100 a month. That's the way to start, and then eventually get into that morass that is the larger government spaces of solving our biggest problems.
Yeah, and for those of you interested, I put the link now accepting $99 pre-orders down below at jupe.com. Just so you know, this is not a paid for advertisement. This is doing what we do best, and that is promoting people that are doing it better.
Well, I'll be, you should also mention that I'll be out on people's street corners, twirling a large arrow that says $99. Those guys that are.
Yeah, are you good at it? Can you do it above your head, catch it behind your back?
Yeah.
Right? I love it.
So would you like me, we've got about 13 minutes left. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, we got it. We're in this for 45 minutes already. Yeah, we got about 15 minutes, give or take less. There's no hard stop, but we like to keep it within an hour. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go out and why don't you show us what this is all about so people can physically see one?
Great. I am going to put this one on mute. Go grab my phone, and I'll be on in just a second. I may have to.
Great. I'll put your phone on as soon as I see you. So. All right, everybody. I mean, listen, this is a great conversation. This is somebody that's doing it better. He's been in the space. He understands offsite construction. He understands technology. And now we're going to have the opportunity to go see it. So we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. We got Jeff on now. What's happening, Jeff? Jeff on the go. I love it. Jeff on the go. That's going to be the new name for our on the go.
So, yeah, Elon gets a bunch of crap for doing this with us. So, I've actually got real masks here, and I'll throw one of these on. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine, and I love the fact that you guys actually sell bandanas, too. You got some cool swag.
Yeah, we've actually got our Jupe bandana swag. I don't know if it's still on screen share, but let's see. Yeah, there we go. Those will be coming out soon.
Yeah, I'll put it up there now.
We've also got keychains, little benches, all kinds of things. So, let me actually leave it there, and there's away from camera.
Yeah, you'll have to switch to the back camera there, and then I'll put you full screen. You can walk us through. All right.
Okay, my office here. I was telling Dave, this little piece of duct tape marks a line to that side and that side of the carpet. That's exactly the dimensions of the dumpster. So that was my Navy SEALs training period when I was sleeping on the floor there a number of years ago. Can you hear me, Dave?
Yeah, no, I love it. So while you're walking out there, what in the world made you wake up and go, well, you know what? I think I'm going to get a dumpster and I'm going to sleep in it.
It's a longer story, but it basically had to do with me one day sitting in a Starbucks and saying, hey, I'm working on this academic article on, I think the academic article was intra-urban concentrations of particulate matter less than 10 microns in diameter and effects on cohort studies. I said, you know, there's got to be something more, and how better to break out of that boredom than living in a dumpster.
I love it. That's so far above me.
I'll kind of keep it on the floor here. I don't want to show the entire production facility,
Sure.
but I will show you some of the Jupes. So we've got 2 lined up here and a couple of more behind me. You can see like the solar kits. This is all Baltic birch wood, so a real high finish. We can actually switch that out. It's got LEDs all around the side that give you a really soft light. You can see the solar panels tucked under the bed there. All this stuff folds down in flat packs. And then really cool stuff, I think, for like a hospitality situation where you could throw a cooler or some refresh the beer or the Tito's vodka there, and then get it inside without ever having to leave your bathrobe. There's another one we've got there, and then here's one of the Jupes right here, kind of in full form. You can see we've got it up on some stands there. So can you see that still?
Yeah, no, you're perfect. Everybody's seeing everything you're showing.
Yeah, so you know, you can see I did kind of make my bed. I should have made that a little bit better. But you can see kind of the size of the space. You really have to walk in one, and I'd welcome anybody in the Los Angeles area to come by our facility. They can just email me or hit me up on Instagram. The ceilings here are huge. So I'm 6'1", and in a typical kind of shelter system, you really just don't have you know, the ability to really stand up. They're 11 feet at the front. So, you know, when you're sitting in here, if somebody were to add one of these as an Airbnb, the ability to look out at the Grand Canyon or some remote space with a really wide view, we have a door that actually drops down in front of that, is a really kind of special experience.
Right.
We also have in here, I can say, Alexa, turn Jupe lights on. It actually worked. So this is all off grid as well. It's hooked into a hotspot. We're working on getting satellite internet, so these can be anywhere. But that is that's our off grid package system that goes with this. This bed flips around and drops down into the unit. So, you know, you've got dimming lighting, high-end kind of Lutron switches there. We also have like ground effects that you can change the color of that kind of make the Jupe look like it's floating out, you know, out over the desert. Now, we don't sell this current one right here with the LEDs on the outside. It's really more in following our, you know, the whole automobile industry. It's more like a kind of concept car. The ones we have like out in Joshua Tree don't have those LEDs on the outside, and it's a little bit of a different canvas product, kind of like some of the ones that I was showing earlier, but that does give you the general kind of shape of it.
Right. And these things kind of glow at night, right, from the light inside?
Yeah, it lights up sort of like a lantern at night. So they have a really cool look out over the land. And then from the inside, you get a really soft light that comes up off of these LEDs, also embedded in the slab, right, in the Jupe chassis. You set it down on these legs that sort of self-level, and so you can get it leveled once you get it out to whatever space you're in, and you're set up within like an hour.
So what are you setting these on, Jeff? Typically, I mean, I guess you could put them on planks of wood if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, you can put them on planks of wood, or if you've got a hard enough surface, right, they've got 6 of those feet, you can just set it on the ground. I think in one of the places where it's really sandy, we've got them on some little like kind of masonry blocks. Yeah. But yeah, you can. It's made to kind of set up anywhere. And you know, if you were in the city in a parking lot type scenario with the different top on here, obviously that would hold well. Right.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. It really is. So tell me a little bit about how does the electric work? So you have the battery pack in there. You have solar capability to capture the solar to recharge. Where would something like that be on this?
Yeah. So these connections right here, plug and play. You can literally set up in 30 seconds your solar system. So these plug right into these 100-watt panels that have some stands that go out on the ground. On our hardtop versions, we will have the ability to put those up on the roof. And then underneath the chassis, we have a 200 amp hour battery that you can double or triple in there if you want to do that. We also have, this one doesn't have it because it is up on the stand, but we've got these porches as well that pack in there, and those are really nice to kind of just sit out there and have your morning coffee. They kind of cantilever off really elegantly on the base.
Right. And talk to me a little bit about the plumbing. I mean, obviously you're not hardwired into a septic system anywhere or the city water, city sewer. How is that going to work? Kind of like a motorhome or an RV?
Yeah, it's kind of like an RV. Actually, our COO has built and ran and sold a number of really high-end Sprinter conversion companies. And so, you know, it's kind of, and then our lead engineer is a big van life guy. So we're really going to pull a lot of technology out of the boat industry and the RV industry to do that. But the idea that I talked about earlier of, you know, each one of these blocks, I think one of our customers puts like firewood in there right now for the campsite. But, you know, the idea is that eventually we'll be able to drop a black water tank in here, right? Or actually on the side one, empty that, or a composting toilet or whatnot. I mean, I have some prototypes of that right now at the factory, but I don't think we're ready to show those quite yet.
Sure. I love it. All right. I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you for showing us. This.
I'll take you guys back into the
into the office. So as you're walking back, I'm going to ask some other questions. You know, with the structure itself, is that just aluminum poles and then a canvas type of product? I guess that's.
It's a they're a. Let me actually switch back over here.
I'll take you out of this one. All right, Jeff's coming back in. There you are, buddy. Okay, you're back.
Let's see. Can you hear me again?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
All right, yeah, we're back. It's just a really lightweight, very strong sort of aluminum product that we've engineered. It's pretty complicated. Like the guy that worked on the Cybertruck ATV and Cybertruck designed this thing. And that's why it kind of has that very high design, cool look, but that is not an easy structure to engineer and put together, especially when you're trying to flat pack all that in. But it is something you can't unsee, right? Like, you know, if I took any two Jupes or any two yurts, they kind of look alike, right? And even a lot of the prefab structures, you know, they all kind of look alike. And so we want to design something really iconic where people knew they were in a Jupe.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. So I guess kind of to wrap all of this up and think about how this flat packs, do all those poles fit inside? Does the bed come with it? You're designing furniture as well, right? So you're not just, this isn't going to IKEA and just buying what fits. You guys are actually designing product specifically for the Jupe. And I think that's kind of something that I just want to drive.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I mean, it's all meant to work in one system, right? Because if you can't nest, like these fit into we have a fold down table we're designing. These really high-end cool things double function. They fit into those bricks. They double function as both a chair and an end table. And everything is designed to kind of fit within that patent pending system that we have from a modular perspective. If we have a couple of minutes, you know, I would like to sort of bring the conversation back to what we're, you know, really trying to do here. So it's great. You know, we're making a product that rents for $250 to $350 a night that somebody can put in their backyard or on their piece of land and throw it on an Airbnb or Hip Camp or whatnot. But really our long goal is, you know, design out this chassis such that we've got a solution for those 1.6 billion people. It's a massive problem. It's about a $500 billion market that no one's really solved, the displaced persons market. And, my goal, and this is going to sound crazy, is that at some point, 1% of humanity, about 100 million people by about 2050, will be living in or using some sort of Jupe product. And it's a long way to go to get there, but I think it's a worthy goal. And, these folks have been through a lot, and we want to give them a place to live with that dignity that they're proud to go home to when they don't have a home.
Yeah, well, it is a BHAG, as we call it, big, hairy, audacious goal. I mean, but you know what? Without big goals, we don't go anywhere. Right? You got to look to the future, and you got to start somewhere. And I wouldn't say it's crazy. I would say waking up saying I'm going to live in a dumpster and mapping it out on my floor is a little more crazy than a big goal like you're striving to help such a large percentage of the population.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have to convince anyone that that the phrases is that these are being uttered from are a highly sane, balanced human. Yeah, I mean, not all of us are going to Mars. And for those of us that aren't going to Mars, Jupe is trying to build a system for those of us here on Earth.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jeff, listen, I appreciate having you on the show. Is there anything else that you would like to leave with the audience? Anything that's up and coming? Are you speaking anywhere? Anything we should be looking forward to in the near future from Jupe, from Jeff Wilson and the team?
Yeah, I mean, we have some big announcements coming. We have product out there. I would encourage everybody to follow Jupe on Instagram at Jupe Inc. You can go on and pre-order right now. We've got a pretty long line of folks that are waiting on their Jupes, but particularly folks that are interested in deploying a lot of these. We'd be interested in talking. And we're going to have some really cool things from a sort of home tech perspective coming in the next 6 months that I think people are really going to love.
I think so too. I love it, man. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. The information's down below, jupe.com. Place your order, $99. Get your order in the door there. All right. So from dumpster diver to startup, I love it. I love it. Not your first one either. You've been on several of these. Jeff, you're not crazy, man. You know what? We need more. I'm the psychiatrist. You're not crazy. I talk to a lot of people.
Therapy. You're way less expensive than my New York therapist.
You haven't got my bill yet, man. I love it. Well, hey, listen, you got to keep doing what you're doing. We need more people like you thinking differently and pushing the envelope and really putting it out there and driving innovation forward. What you're doing just with this alone is going to get young people interested in our industry. If it does that alone to bring people into an industry like ours that's so great in a crisis that we're having across the globe right now to help solve that, just that alone is very powerful, because what you've built a super cool product, a lot of cool technology in it. Nobody else is doing it that I've seen in the same way you're doing it. So all of that to me is commendable, and that's why we wanted to have you as part of our show.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everybody, listen, if you are not following Jeff Wilson and Jupe, go there right now. Please hit that like button, that connect button. I'm sure he'll connect with you. My name's Dave Cooper. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Hey, Jeff, why do we go to Twitch? Are you familiar with Twitch?
We can go over to Twitch anytime. Do you want me to switch on?
No, you stay right where you're at. No, you stay where you're at. We live stream on Twitch because Twitch is the gaming platform for all the young people. So we go there, because they're not going to come to us. We're going to them. And that's why we're streaming on their platform today as well. That's it, everybody. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. My name is Dave Cooper. Jeff Wilson, CEO of Jupe.com. Thank you, Jeff. Don't go anywhere.
We'll see you on Minecraft on Twitch.
Yeah, it won't be long. We'll see you actually on location here in a couple months when we bring our roadshow out there. Everybody else out there, thank you for the comments. Jeff, don't go anywhere. I'll come back to you after the outro. Bye now.